Hello and welcome to another episode of WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm Michael Austin, and this is Abby Liebing, our reporter extraordinaire, and Tara Snyder, our assignment editor extraordinaire here at the Western Journal.
We're all just extraordinary today.
Yeah, I just like pretending like I'm smart by saying big words like extraordinaire. It's kind of my thing. It's how I compensate. Anyway, we've got some great stuff for you today. The propaganda machine, the Democratic propaganda machine, is in full force. They are feeding you a bunch of lies, a bunch of untruths. And today on the episode, we're going to break those down for you. We're going to tell you what's really happening with gas prices. We're going to tell you about what's really happening with the Ukraine-Russia situation and what's really happening with the so-called Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. But first, one of the biggest messages that the Biden administration is trying to put out there right now is that apparently Joe Biden had nothing to do with gas prices going up over the past year.
Wow.
Nothing.
Apparently, it's Putin. The invasion of Ukraine somehow retroactively, for the past several months before Putin even invaded, was making gas prices go up during Biden's administration. How weird.
How strange. How absolutely bizarre. I know, who'd have thunk. I mean, obviously gas prices went up when Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yes.
But also, as anyone who looks at markets at any time ever or reads the news or frankly just doesn't live under a rock can see, is that gas prices were bound to go up and they're going to keep going up regardless. I mean, Russia could stop invading Ukraine tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, everything could go back to totally normal in Europe overnight. Which won't happen, but it could.
Yes.
And gas prices would still be high. Sure, they drop for a hot sec, but then they just go right back up. Why? Because the U.S. isn't drilling.
But wait a minute. But Jen Psaki just told me that Biden had nothing to do with this.
I know, and don't we all believe Jen Psaki?
Yeah.
The hilarious thing is that she keeps claiming, so the biggest thing right now is that there's all these problems with federal leasing for drilling. Joe Biden also obviously shut down the Keystone pipeline, which would have brought us a lot of oil. But somehow the administration keeps saying, they're like, we didn't do any of this.
Right.
And we're like, we have the executive orders to prove it. It's like,
right. It was just a couple months ago that he kind of upped the whole federal leasing thing, right? Like, it's costing private companies so much to produce oil that it's not even worth doing it.
It's not.
Yeah.
And also, added to that, it's not worth drilling your own oil if it's so hard to transport because all of your pipelines are shut down. So the Biden administration has shown by shutting down the Keystone pipeline right at the beginning of his first day in office, he showed that he was not willing to put in the infrastructure for oil. And so all these oil companies are like, you can ask us to drill all you want, but if you're not going to give us pipelines for transportation, we don't feel like drilling.
Yeah, and that's a move that he's never going to be able to undo. Yeah. We just talked to a oil exec in Montana recently for a story that's going to go out today, and he told us that Keystone's never coming back now. Like, Biden has ruined that forever, and so the oil we need to bring those gas prices down it's not coming anytime soon.
Yeah. It's just crazy to me. And when we look at inflation overall, the other thing that I don't think really anyone in the media is talking about is how just nearly 2 years ago, everyone on the right pretty much was warning that if you gave everyone stimulus checks, you would deal with the repercussions approximately, 2 years later. And so now we're all supposed to be shocked, And that's not to diminish the horrible decisions that the Biden administration has had, but what's fair is fair. And it just proves that when the government tries to step in and kind of like fix a situation like that, it's just not beneficial.
And there's so many factors going into gas prices going up. Mostly, I would say, Biden related.
Mm-hmm. Mostly Biden related.
Well, I mean, just general economy.
But
too.
that's a good point, Tara, economically, because typically gas prices are kind of the baseline measuring stick of where inflation's at in a lot of cases. So that's a big part of it. And Biden, obviously, their decision to print off money to the degree that they have been is not going to alleviate the problem anytime soon. But what really hits me about this, Abby, is that, first of all, gas prices were going up before the whole Russia invasion.
Right.
So there was already decisions he was making, was putting them up. So saying that it's all Russia is ridiculous. But secondly, Russia also wouldn't have invaded if it wasn't for Biden's decisions, and this is what a lot of experts have speculated, that weakened our energy independence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, why?
So twofold. So it was getting worse because of him, but even if you pin it all on Russia, that's also all his fault.
That's also
so what
still
argument are you making?
his fault. It's like, you just keep, you kind of travel around the circle, and every time you're like, oh my goodness, we're back at Biden. It's like, oh, and Biden caused that. Oh, and he caused that. And
Yes.
it's just unavoidable. His economic sensibilities are nil.
Yeah.
And almost everything that he does, he says, oh, this isn't my fault. This is spiraling off of something else. And it's like, well, who is at the root of every problem? It's typically the administration.
Yeah.
And it makes his excuses Jen Psaki's excuses.
And the media's excuses.
And the
for them,
media's
too.
excuses.
Yeah.
If you go and look, like, I really challenge anybody to go just Google why are gas prices rising. And of course, you'll have a million things pop up. Peruse CNN or something like that, and they'll give you these super long explanations and like these history books, basically trying to shift and explain away blame from the Biden administration.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not really how it works.
Yeah. Probably if you Google that, the only somewhat honest take you can get is from the Wall Street Journal. Outside of that, it's all just spin. You get these convoluted explanations. They're doing everything they can to cover for Biden, and it seems like from the polling, it's not working out so hot.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah.
No, it's not working out because people are waking up and
Yeah.
kind of smelling the roses, and people are seeing what's going on. I mean, there was even a tweet a few days ago that had a bunch of likes and a bunch of retweets of some random person tweeting, "I regret voting for Joe Biden." So I think it's a really good indication of where we're headed for the midterms. And then I think there was a special election in Texas that also did really, really well.
Yeah, we saw. The red wave is on its way, and the propaganda. This propaganda would have worked maybe 10 years ago. Before that, probably 5 years ago. But I just don't see any of it, especially on the gas prices. It's just not working. People are not buying it.
Well, I mean, typically with Americans, for Americans, it almost always comes down to price, money, economy.
Yeah.
Those are our biggest things. And so even if you are lied to out to wazoo and you can't find any, real answers to why you're paying $5 for gas.
Right.
You're paying $5 for gas, and it's not your fault. It's not your individual fault that you got up and went to work and had to pay $5 a gallon for gas. Right. And so you're going to find someone to blame it on, and you're always going to blame it on the authority. It's human nature.
Yeah.
And so actually, in some ways, I feel like the gas prices being so high bodes, it's a good publicity stunt for Republicans in some ways, because they can just come in the midterms and be like, we'll get gas prices back down for you.
It should help. The other thing that really helps the narrative is that Donald Trump literally said this exactly would happen. He predicted all of this. He said, okay, gas prices are going to go up to $5, $6, $7, $8. And then the administration, the next administration, whatever it is going to tell you that, just buy an electric. We just need to move to green energy. This is our chance now to move to green energy.
Yeah.
Tara, I know, Mayor Pete was saying, just buy an electric car.
Yeah, just buy an electric car. Oh, great, thanks. Let me just do that really quick, because I definitely have $50,000 just to spare.
$55,000 to buy a new electric car.
Yeah, just every college student ever has all of that cash sitting around. But
and if you order one, you're not even going to get it for like a year. So even if you do, for most Americans, that's a year's worth of salary.
Well, and the thing that they don't tell you is making the battery, the batteries for those cars, they're horrible for the environment.
Yes.
There's so many things that are just terrible, and they just gloss it over.
Yeah, you run into all sorts of problems. And listen, I'm a pretty big proponent of electric cars,
Same
more
way.
green energy. I definitely fall a little bit outside of the right wing on that. But at the same time, you just have to wake up and live in the reality that we're in right now of we are not dependent on electric vehicles, and we can't be. We're not there yet.
There was a great clip of Kamala Harris yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw it, where she goes, "I want you to think about electric cars, electric trucks. Imagine people going to work on electric buses. And we think if that's possible. But guess what? You just imagined it. And it was literally the most creepy monologue I have ever seen from her. It literally made my skin crawl.
That's so disturbing.
It's so disturbing because it just is like, it kind of goes back to her.
It's pretty bad.
Russia is a larger country and they're going after a smaller country. It's like, come on. Like, who is their PR team?
Well, what gets me with all of the propaganda that goes on is that, you know, they're trying to push a certain agenda in the media and politicians all trying to push a narrative. But then they make the mistake of like acting like you're a 4-year-old.
Yes.
Which that is never a good idea to patronize people. You do not want your electorate to feel stupid.
Yes.
And that is the last thing you want.
Not a good idea.
And that's exactly what the Biden administration and what the media is doing. They're like, no, you are too stupid. You are too simple voters to understand anything that's going on. So just stop.
And I think, one last big point about the whole green energy, gas prices, all this stuff is that, look, if they want to move us to green energy, there's a future where we are using a lot more green energy, but their strategy for getting there is completely insane and doesn't make any sense. So to get to a place where we have enough green energy to sustain like most of the energy sector, most of the economy, we need to burn up so much more natural gases to get to that point than we have been. So like literally, if you want to get there at a sustainable place, we have to up production of fossil fuels like a lot.
Yeah.
Now that's like Musk, who's a huge green energy guy, is saying that. You know, everybody in the know that knows what they're talking about is saying that.
Yeah.
And yet they think magically what we're going to do is move off of fossil immediately. And
We
depend
can just turn it off and it's over.
Make sure you retweet that picture of the little girl crying in Ukraine saying, I'll walk to work for her. It's like, give me a break. Give me a break. It's just like the infographic nightmare that we've seen for the past 2 years.
But that's the big part of this propaganda is them trying to play to emotion. They don't care about facts. It's just all emotion.
All the emotions.
They did that with gas prices. They're also doing it in Florida with this don't say gay bill.
Oh yeah.
Tara, what exactly is are Florida Republicans telling people not to say the word gay in schools?
Actually, they're saying it's absolutely banned. You're not allowed to say it. You actually only can say homosexual now. Just kidding. That's what they would probably want you to believe, but it's completely false. So the past couple days, there's been this huge controversy where the media has perpetuated a new lie that basically is you can't say gay. Well, the real measures behind the bill is that you can't teach kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third graders about being gay or being homosexual or anything like that. Anything that's more sexually aimed, because no one in their right mind thinks an 8-year-old needs to be learning about those things.
Right.
And so we do have a clip, of course, of a bunch of different politicians going off and saying gay, gay, gay over and over, and it's pretty much the most embarrassing thing you'll see today.
Gay! Gay, gay, gay! Our daughters gay! Gay, gay, gay! Gay, gay!
Oh my gosh, I just can't do it.
Wow, what civil rights heroes fighting against bigotry right there.
Yeah, and it looks like that was at even a high school too. I don't know. Yeah, so it's like if you're sitting in high school, and I remember always having the teachers go and say their stuff and brandishing whatever crap they were promoting.
Yeah, you grew up in a pretty woke high school.
Yes,
pretty woke
as
school
Michael
system.
knows, we kind of worked together on some of the stuff from my high school. Hello, and it's like if you're a student there, you don't want to go and say, as Abby was saying, be patronized by your teachers with these officials saying that this is a don't say gay bill. They're insulting your intelligence. Look into it. It's completely false, and it just blows my mind that so many people will just listen to what someone on Twitter with a blue check says, because it's completely factually inaccurate.
Right. Yeah. And it's just to take that. So the bill, what it actually says is those certain things, like you said, can't be taught to first through third or K through third grade.
Yeah, K through third grade.
It literally doesn't even restrict anything past that.
Yeah, it doesn't do. so you could literally get to fourth grade
Yes.
and be gung ho for it. So I just don't understand. Plus, it's not the school's responsibility to teach your child about sex or anything like
Right.
that.
No.
Like there needs to be a certain separation. When you're in
Yes.
third grade and kindergarten, whatever, you need to learn how to write your name, learn what 2 + 2 is, learn the colors, basic tenets of what
Yeah.
it means, to be a child. Kids don't need to be inundated with this identity crossword puzzle nonsense.
Right.
And I think one of the reasons that they're pushing this narrative that's just utterly false, like there's not even a shred of truth to the whole "don't say gay" thing. They really want to obfuscate from the issue, which is kind of this gender theory indoctrination we're seeing in schools. We're seeing really, I'm always really cautious to go along with kind of the right-wing narrative that a lot of people believe that, like, a lot of the of the LGBTQ movement is about sexualizing children. Like, sometimes I'm pretty cautious of that. But literally, we're seeing that happen, when they put pornography on library school shelves. We have plenty of stories covering that. Maya Kobabe's Genderqueer, this book it's popped up in states across the country in different school libraries, and it just has porn in it.
Yeah.
And it's about teaching kids about, being transgender and gender theory. And like,
Well, yeah.
I really push back against a lot of the stuff like, the gay rights movement is all about pedophilia. Like, I don't think that.
Yeah.
But man, when they push stuff like that with the trans agenda, it's hard for me to make that case when they're blatantly sexualizing children.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's kind of the natural spiraling effect of when you're trying to describe to a small child what being lesbian, gay, or
Right.
trans
That's
is.
why you don't do it. Yeah.
It's like, well, what does that mean? Oh, that means you have sex with different types of people. And then
Yeah.
it's like, then you bring up the whole discussion, and all of a sudden, then you're teaching 6-year-olds what sex is.
Yeah.
And it just spirals out of control. And again, I agree with
Yeah.
Michael. I think that there can be overblowing it
Yeah.
of, it's
Yeah.
not all pedophilia.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
does open the can of worms immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, they like literally people like me that try to push back against that case. You're making it so difficult for me.
I
Like, you
know.
literally put out groom.
Yeah.
Like this is the type of material that you'd put out if you were a pedophile trying to groom children. You
Yeah.
get them normalized to sexual behavior, and then they don't understand the context, and then they're comfortable with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, a lot of the reason people are like so frustrated with like the whole movement, with a lot of liberal movements, you see the radical feminism movements, like all of the things
Yeah.
like that, is that they just take it and then take it way, way too far.
Yes.
Because
Right.
now you're seeing I'm a man, but I identify as a woman, and it's like
Yeah.
you see the hijacking of feminism that was of Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton.
Yeah.
And so it's just been completely corrupted. And I think that's what's happened to the LGBT movement, because it's people were saying, okay, you know what, live your own life. As long as I don't have to be involved, then I don't care, whatever. That's been a lot of people's beliefs for a long
Yeah.
time. But now it's you actually have to believe in it and support it and not think it's wrong
And
on
be
your own
part and
personal.
take part in
Yeah,
it.
on your personal level.
If you're a straight guy and you're not attracted to trans women, aka biological men, then you are actively our opponent in this movement. So
Yeah.
you better get
Yeah.
on board. I really wanted to make sure we hammer home how gross some of this stuff is. So actually, we brought kind of an example of some of the things that are being taught and why this Florida bill is even necessary. Because I'm sure there's lots of people that wouldn't even be aware of some of the things that are slipping in education. And so we have a clip we're going to play for you in a moment, but let me set it up first. So there's this leftist group. I don't remember what state they're in. Was it Kentucky? Yeah,
Kentucky. Yeah. In the Appalachia area.
They teach
Appalachia.
sex ed. They call it sexy sex ed. They have a website with a summer camp for teaching children about sexual topics, and it's literally from it says this education is for teens and children of all ages.
So everybody.
And then in this clip, one of the instructors makes it explicit that they are also talking about children that are just learning how to speak. And here's one of the things that they're kind of pushing on kids that I think a lot of parents, left, right, and center, would find pretty offensive and pretty gross. Let's play that clip right now.
Masturbation is really healthy, and I recommend it to people of all ages. All ages. As soon as my nephews could talk, they were doing that. That's what they were doing.
So yeah,
That is vile.
her nephews, she's teaching her family members who have just learned how to talk how to masturbate.
Wow.
And we don't want that in schools.
Yeah. I just don't know. I don't even know what to say, because I just feel like the world's so upside down and backwards. it just blows my mind that you would be even able to think that.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of person right there is like the people, or like the kind of person that I was sat down and told at 6, if someone says anything like that to you or says anything kind of bad,
Run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally run, like gouge their eyes out, like run away.
And I pulled up the curriculum for Sexy Sex Ed Virtual Sexy Summer Camp, one of the programs that this woman helps run. Here's some of the things that they go over with children of all ages: sex with me, self-pleasure, reproductive health, the basics, gender diversity, policing of blackness somehow snuck in there. Like, that has a lot to do with sex ed.
Who
Sexy
even knows?
trans sex ed is one of the weeks is called that. Self-managed abortion info share, sex on drugs, contraceptive options, sex after body trauma. Some of them like are more reasonable than others, but all of them probably shouldn't be taught to kids of a certain age that aren't able to understand whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the other part of this is okay, so that movement, like you said, it used to be much more of like a libertarian, like do what you want movement, and I'll do what I want. And now they're forcing it on everyone. You have schools that are told, okay, if a child comes out as trans, you are not allowed to inform the parents.
Which is just
yeah.
It's absurd. And
Yeah.
well, when it comes down to it, I mean, like, we've just opened Pandora's box.
Yes.
With all of these issues. And it with it all being so tied to identity, you are just actively in the business then of tearing down individuals' identity and societal identity.
Yeah.
And it's just, this is what they're going after.
And you see this happen in a lot of cultures right before they completely collapse in
Yeah.
history, is that kind of the sexual boundaries just kind of get erased. Like, this happened in Rome shortly before
Yeah,
the
it's
fall
happened.
of Rome.
This happened in Greece. This happened in Rome. This happened
Yeah.
in Sparta. I mean, we could
Greece,
literally
right.
go down the
Yeah.
list. It's like, as soon as you open the sexual boundaries and just sexualize your culture to this
Right.
degree,
The-
watch out.
And the other side of this that we're just so against kids being exposed to this is just purely the transgender gender identity idea. Because what happens is what people like Deborah sex neurologist, have coined as early onset gender dysphoria, where you have kids that are just kind of growing into their bodies. They're a little confused. They don't quite fit in, and then you tell them, well, that's because you were born with the wrong genitals. So obviously you just need to transition. You need to do things that will permanently alter your biological chemistry, and that will make you feel whole again. And what we're seeing is because, typically when it comes to growing up as a kid, you can feel like more of an outsider, and you guys can speak to this better than I can, when you're a girl versus a guy. And so actually early onset gender dysphoria tends to happen a lot more with young girls than it does with young boys.
Well, I mean, because developmentally as a little girl, you're basically almost the same as a little boy for like the first 3 years of life. It's like physically you don't mature. And so then people come after, then it changes and people come
as
after your
things
identity
change
and your sex.
You feel like, things are awkward. I don't quite feel like myself. And then it's like, well, it's because you're the wrong gender.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny too, because I think back to when I was growing up, because I'm twin, and when I was little, I used to be the more kind of like tomboyish one, like didn't want to do whatever. And my sister was way more girly. And then we just kind of flipped a little bit, and she's a little bit more whatever tomboyish now, and I'm definitely more girly. And it's like, I can't imagine if back then, because I didn't fit what my sister was doing at the same age as her twin, that my parents were like, oh, that means that you have gender dysphoria because you're playing with trucks in your sandbox rather than a Barbie doll.
Literally, you're the tomboy is just, it's not going to exist anymore.
It's not going to exist.
They just tell them that, oh no, you're just a boy.
No,
Yeah,
you're just a
boy.
I know.
Like, and for people who claim to hate gender stereotypes so much, they're the ones enforcing them like they're the rule of law.
That's
no,
perfect.
No conservatives care about it.
That's true. A gender stereotype's wrong if you put it on a woman, but when it comes to a trans woman, look at how a trans woman dresses. It's like all of the most feminine makeup, dresses, high heels, like literally the picture of kind of the stereotype of a woman. That's what transgenderism
that's all it is.
Exactly. And it's just so confused. And the problem is that when society starts redefining identities this way,
Yeah.
you are then affecting obviously the physicality of people, which is then also their identity. And then next thing you know, everyone talks about, we're in the middle of a mental health crisis. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Maybe because you are literally trying to
Yeah.
to change the minds and the hearts and the emotions and the very thoughts of people when they're this young.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like you look for there's like, getting philosophical, you look for something that's going to give you meaning within life. And for a lot of society, we've kind of gotten to this way, way, way more secular
Right.
society. So if you're thinking, oh, maybe I really was born in the wrong like body, then you're like, okay, I'm going to identify as trans. Oh, or I'm going to go to this. And you're going to grasp at things to find a group to go with. Because
Yeah.
you don't have
Yeah.
that group anymore.
Yeah.
And literally that we used to find that cohesiveness with shared religion, shared values, but you can't teach your kids to be Christian growing up anymore. You have to go by kind of the left's new state-sponsored religion. We live in a theocracy. I 100% believe that, and it's a woke theocracy. I 100% believe that. Government schools push this stuff. Government, all these leftists get into government positions just so they can push this stuff. That's 100% what they're doing. And they're putting out propaganda like the don't say gay stuff. And so, they're putting out propaganda about that, about gas prices, about pretty much everything. So if you want to learn the truth, you got to be looking at all sides of it. We're not going to be right 100% of the time on the right, but you could be darn sure that they're not going to be right 100% of the time. And definitely here at the Western Journal, we're at least trying our best. And we're working within the framework of those, moral Christian conservative values that helped create the most prosperous country in world history. So any other last thoughts, guys, on kind of the propaganda going on right now?
No, just go
No.
read the Western Journal.
Go read the
We're
Western
ethical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually believe in ethics.
Yeah. So that's all we had for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. Be sure to follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/WJ Live. Make sure to like, subscribe, smash that like button. I always wanted to say that. I watch all the YouTubers. Smash
Smash the like button.
making the producer laugh in the booth. And what you can really do, the biggest thing you can do to help us out would be to go to westernjournal.com/join. And if you feel compelled to do so, consider a subscription to the Western Journal. It helps us circumvent a lot of big tech censorship, Facebook, Google. Whenever we talk about things like the Don't Say Gay bill, whenever we try to actually parse out the truth from that, whenever we try to give you the Christian conservative perspective on things, those companies do not like that. And they will do what they can to, throttle our views and to throttle our voice and to keep people from hearing what we have to say. So if you can go directly to us, help fund us directly, that can help us circumvent a lot of that. And that can you can be part of the mission here. So we really welcome you. We really encourage you to do that if you feel called to do so. But other than that, for me, for Abby, for Tara, thank you so much for joining us today on WJ Live.